Únase a nosotros para vivir una experiencia lingüística única, tanto si eres un principiante que necesita incrementar sus conocimientos, o un estudiante avanzado que busca perfeccionar sus habilidades lingüísticas, nuestro programa tiene algo para todos.
Con lecciones dinámicas, ejercicios interactivos y comentarios en tiempo real, el programa Inglés sin Barreras en Radio Nacional de Guinea Ecuatorial, Radio Malabo, te ayudará a dominar el idioma.
No te pierdas esta increíble oportunidad de mejorar tu nivel de inglés y ampliar tus horizontes. Síguenos 2 veces a la semana, los martes y jueves a la misma hora, de 11 horas de la mañana a las 12 horas del mediodía, y embárcate en un viaje hacia la excelencia lingüística.
This is Equatorial Guinea State Radio, and the program is English Without Barriers. 12 minutes to go, and you can join us. Let us recall that the program is live, 333-092-260. My guest is Mr. Eduardo, and he's a professor in journalism and communication. So feel free to join us if you need to know more regarding what we're talking about today, which is the topic of the day. We're talking about, let's say, journalism, of course. Mr. Eduardo, in order to move into the last lane of the program, can we talk now about those who are attending the courses over there at Banapa? Precisely, what is taught there? When we say journalism is white, are they looking for ways of writing properly? Are they looking for ways to fact-checking, as we've said? What else?
It's not a class, it's not a course on improving writing skills. Mm-hmm. That is something that maybe should be done, except that it's a long process and would not be, you really can't do it in just a few days. It would take this afternoon, for example, they're going to bring in some stories that they've done. We're going to critique those stories. We're going to try to critique those stories based on what we've done for the last 3 days that I mentioned before. Yeah. The construction of the story, the use of quotes, the sources, etc. So it's not really a class about improving the writing skills, although there's a little bit of that. It's more, as I say, the concepts and the how to go about thinking like a journalist, questioning when somebody says something. How do you check it out? How do you question? Of trying to figure out. One of the things that I put a lot of emphasis on is what is new about this situation? What is new about this story? What is the most important element of this story? A lot of stories don't begin and end in one day. Yeah. Most stories run for at least some days. Some stories run for several weeks. Stories run for several months, and stories run for several years. So as stories develop, the journalist has to understand and be able to seize what is new, and that's one of the things I try to get them to think that way. As I said before on research on the internet, what do I want to know? There's a very famous American journalist, John Gunther, who is long passed away, but he had a quote I use all the time. The quote is, "It seems to me that the essence of journalism is to know what it is that you want to know. What is this about? What is important? What is not important?" That is one of the key tasks of the journalist. And in a newsroom, one of the key tasks is to give each story a certain hierarchy. And we're losing that because of social media. In social media, every story is worth the same as any other story, and that's not the case. It depends on where you are, who your readers are, what your geographical position is, et cetera, et cetera. But one story may be very important in one country and insignificant in another country. But within each country, there's a hierarchy of story. The most important story of the day, or the most important 3 stories of the day, are these. And we're starting to lose that. So I'm trying to get them to think in that way, trying to get them to think, okay, what's really important? What is it that our readers, our viewers, our listeners really need to know, to try to focus, to try to put things into context. Another victim of social media, putting things into context.
Yeah.
So that's basically what this is about.
And the reaction?
And
the reaction.
Oh, they've
The
been,
reception.
they are...
Looks like they've been waiting for that for so long.
Oh, they're very eager. Well,
Yeah.
As I say, I think the vast majority of them have a great deal of experience already. But you know, the real sign of a professional in any profession is the real professional always wants to learn more. There's a wonderful story about Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
When Marilyn Monroe, once she became a very famous actress, she went back to acting school. Because you can always improve. You can always do better. The person who thinks that they know everything, that's not a professional.
Yeah.
And so here they're very eager, they're very attentive, they ask a lot of questions. Sometimes they ask so many questions that I can't get through the program that I planned because they ask a lot of questions, which is fine, and we have a lot of discussions. So they are, it's a very, very good group.
When it comes to critics, is the word you mentioned earlier, critic, trying to critique some news. What exactly is the news? Because here in the country, sometimes when you write something, this is not the news. So as a journalist, what should be, maybe it's a private question, personal question, how to recognize that this is worth to be a news?
Well, it's difficult to answer because it just depends on so many things. It depends on the context of the situation at that particular time. It depends on...
For instance, there is somebody outside there handing over water to the population or to a group of people and call the press so that they can make it. Is it... Sometimes we say that this is not the news. What is new on that? What is something that we've never seen before regarding the news, for instance?
Well, somebody handing out water on the street to the population, I think that if it's never happened before, that would be news.
Yeah.
If it has happened before, and even if it has not happened before, the good journalism would say, okay, this is what's happening on the surface. This person is handing out water, and you're going to go and talk to that person if you can. But then there's another level. Why is that happening? Why is this person doing this? Does this implicate some sort of water problem in the city? Does this implicate that there's a shortage of water, or there's a shortage of drinking water? Or who is this person? What are the motivations for this person to be doing this? Who is behind this person? So you see, you have to, that's what you need to, you can't just remain at the surface element. But again, what is news? It depends on where you are. It depends on who your listeners are, in the case of this radio station.
Yeah.
It depends on what the context of the moment is. So it's a very, it's a case by case situation. And we see this all the time. In Europe, for example, you see that what is big news in France is barely mentioned outside of France.
Yeah.
And the same thing, it can be Italy, Spain, Belgium, whatever. There are few European-wide stories. Most are national or local stories. Same in the United States. What is big news in New York is probably not news at all in Texas. It just depends.
It looks like, talking about this specific point, it looks like the rules are not the same everywhere.
No, and that's great. It's good that the world is not the same.
I mean the roles, the journalism role.
Oh no, the role is the same.
And how come that we've just mentioned that in Europe Okay, the big news in Europe, maybe in France, is not a big news in Germany, for instance.
Because the impact of the news is not the same. What may impact a person in Paris has absolutely no impact for a person in southern Spain.
Yeah.
But the role of the journalist is the same. It's just that the news itself may not have the same impact, may not have the same importance, because in that other place there is other news that has much more importance. Of course, there are some every day there are worldwide stories that people are interested in around the world.
The word. This is we're going just ending the program now. We have some 10 minutes left. We've been talking, and time is going by. So we're talking about the roles.
It's a wonderful program, by the way. No, I mean,
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Gives us a time, the chance to really talk.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. When we mention the word roles, journalism role, it is said that the way you work here is not the same way you can work in other place, but using the same role. How can we understand this specific fact?
Well, actually, the way you work here should be the same as the way a journalist works in Russia. Should be the same, or in the United States.
It should be.
It should be.
Okay.
But it is not.
It's not, of course, yeah.
Because of the context, because of the economic, political context of the specific country.
From a country to another, there are restrictions. We can say that.
There are some countries have many more restrictions than others, and that's the. But the way the journalism and the role of journalism, it should be the same, but it isn't. In many places, journalists just serve as tools of propaganda. In many places,
yeah.
But that's because of the particular context of that particular society. But it's very interesting, if I may just add something. You talk about role, and this is very difficult for people to understand, and it's one of the reasons why journalists have such a bad reputation, I think, in many cases, not in all, but in many cases unfairly. And the thing is that the journalist is not there to communicate or to help a government or to help a private company or to help a private individual. The journalist is there to inform in the fairest possible manner, but the journalist is also there to uncover wrongdoing. That's what the journalist is there for, to uncover corruption, to uncover, for example...
Unfortunately, that's why some are killed.
Yes, that many are killed. In Mexico is the country where most journalists are killed in the world now for several years because of the drug cartels.
We're talking about drug in Mexico. In other parts of the world, there the fact of corruption.
Absolutely, but that's what it is. The journalist is there to uncover wrongdoing. Now, people think about wrongdoing, they immediately think about governments, but it's not just governments.
Yeah.
It's certainly the private sector, multinational corporations, certainly people who take care of elderly people in homes, tremendous amount of not corruption but mistreatment, anything having to do with the polluting the environment. So that's what the journalist is there for, to uncover this. It's like a policeman is to investigate this, to uncover this. The role is not to fix it.
This is not a job of a journalist.
No, the journalist.
It's not our.
The journalist is not a policeman.
Yeah.
The journalist is not a judge.
Yeah.
But the journalist is there to say, this is wrong. This is not, and hopefully, frequently it is the case. Hopefully, the society will then understand the problem, and this happens all the time. you have investigative reports, you
Yeah.
have investigative journalism that lead to formal investigations, that lead to people being arrested, that lead to people being jailed, even more importantly, that lead to new laws that try to deal with that problem. And a lot of people say journalists never write about the trains that arrive on time. You never write, in other words, you never write about good news.
Yes, never.
Not really true, number one, but number two, a train that arrives on time is really not very interesting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The Singapore Airlines.
Because this is maybe the main thing that a train should do, being there on time all the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Whereas if you the plane that took off and landed, no incidents,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Singapore Airlines plane that runs into massive turbulence, one per person dies, about 20 are badly injured, that's news. And then that can also, in addition to news on that one level, then you say, is this going to be a much more serious problem, perhaps because of climate change? Because turbulence now apparently is becoming much more dangerous
Yeah.
than it used to do, because of climate change. Maybe we need to look at that. Maybe we need to see how, as airline companies, how we can try to avoid these sudden changes in the atmosphere, in the turbulence. That's what I'm talking about. But people say, oh, you never write about the trains that arrive on time. Well, no, we don't. Do you want to read about it? No, you don't.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eduardo. We have now 2 minutes, let's say 2 or 3 minutes, for your parting shot.
A parting shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 minutes. Enough
3
time.
minutes.
Enough time, right?
3 parting shots.
Of course. Let's go ahead, Mr. Eduardo.
No, I mean, I know Africa very well. I've known Africa very well for now since 1991.
How many countries?
35, but 87 trips. And I have a great admiration for Africa. I mean that seriously. I think Africa is, I think the 21st century is the African and Chinese centuries.
Really?
Yes, and I like saying that about Africa. I don't really like saying that about China. I say what I believe.
Okay, we're there. Yeah.
Tremendous resources here, more than anywhere else, actually, on the African continent. Very youthful continent, very young, full of energy, full of enthusiasm, and it really is. I think.
It is said that it's the youngest continent. It is said that Africa is the youngest continent.
Oh, it is, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
It
that's
is
great.
the youngest continent in
great.
terms of population.
Yes, of course.
So hopefully the new generation will be able to create a more equitable societies, more just societies. The main problem in Africa is not poverty, it is corruption. And hopefully the new generation will rise to try to fix that terrible problem. I think it's going to happen, despite setbacks, despite recent setbacks. And Africans need to take their future into their own hands. Unfortunately, in many places...
Is it that easy?
Huh?
Is it that easy?
No, it's not easy
Of
at all.
course.
It's not easy at all, but I think sometimes they are a little bit naive.
Really?
I think so, yes. I think in many... Now I'm really going to get into trouble, but in many countries... they are still screaming and crying about colonialism, Western colonialism, that ended 70 years ago, for the most part, while they don't understand about a new form of colonialism. So that's, you have to be careful about that. Africa is so rich that everybody obviously wants to come in and grab those resources.
Yeah.
It's always been the case, but it's still the case today, except that it's not the same actors. So I am very hopeful about the continent, and I mean that sincerely, otherwise I wouldn't say it. I also noticed that compared to us in the West, we have been spoiled by excess consumerism. We have been spoiled by excess materialism. And in Africa, there is a human element that remains that we have lost to a great degree. And that is one of the wonderful things about the continent.
Mr. EDUARDO, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
55 minutes? It looked like 10 minutes.
55 minutes?
Yes.
Oh my
already
God.
Talking. So thank you very much for coming. I just believe that this is the first time, but not the last.
I hope so. Well, you can invite me anytime you want.
Just take it as something done. Whenever it's possible, I will send you an invitation for you to be here and talk about many other issues.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. EDUARDO. Until next time. Fellows, that's all for today's program. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being there. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us. Next week, Thursday, I'll be here. Personally, believe in you, but let us recall that on Tuesday, my twin, Mateo, will be here in order to bring you an English lesson, as you know, every Tuesday. Thank you very much for being there. Have a great day. Goodbye.